The deep space monitoring station orbited Earth's moon in complete silence. Dr. Amy Torres adjusted her headset and stared at the endless stream of data flowing across her screens. She had been searching for signs of alien life for 12 years, and every day brought the same result: nothing but cosmic background noise and the occasional burst from distant pulsars. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, fine-tuning the receivers that could detect signals from halfway across the galaxy. The Global Space Research Consortium had built this facility with one purpose: to find proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. So far, they had found only emptiness. Amy rubbed her tired eyes and reached for her coffee cup. The liquid had gone cold hours ago, but she drank it anyway. Night shifts in space were lonely, and the caffeine helped her stay focused on the endless task of listening to the cosmos. Her colleagues often joked that she was trying to hear whispers in a hurricane, but Amy believed that somewhere out there, someone was calling. The primary antenna array suddenly came alive with activity. Warning lights flashed across the control panel, and a cascade of alerts filled her computer screens. Amy's heart raced as she watched the signal strength indicators climb higher than she had ever seen them before. This was not background noise or a natural phenomenon. This was an artificial transmission coming from the direction of the Andromeda sector. She quickly activated the recording systems and began running the signal through the decryption algorithms. The transmission was incredibly complex, containing multiple layers of data compressed into mathematical patterns that seemed almost alive. Amy had never seen anything like it, and she knew immediately that this was what she had spent her entire career waiting for. The signal continued for exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds, then stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Amy played the recording back dozens of times, each pass revealing new details hidden within the data structure. The transmission contained images, star charts, technical schematics, and what appeared to be written language using symbols she had never encountered. Working frantically, Amy fed the alien symbols into the most advanced translation software available to humanity. The computer system struggled with the foreign concepts, but slowly began to piece together fragments of meaning. Words like help, dying, and legendary species appeared on her screen, followed by more complex phrases that made her hands tremble as she read them. After 6 hours of continuous work, Amy finally managed to decode the core message. What she read made her question everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe. The transmission was a desperate plea for help from something called the Calyx Republic, a coalition of 17 different alien species facing complete extinction. The message described an enemy known only as the Void Swarm, a force that had already consumed 43 civilizations and showed no signs of stopping. The aliens spoke of their combined fleets as powerless against this threat, and their worlds falling one by one to an enemy that devoured everything in its path. But the most shocking part of the message was how it addressed humanity. The aliens referred to humans as the legendary species and the ones who ended the Great Silence. They spoke of humanity as if they were already known throughout the galaxy, as if humans were some kind of mythical figures from ancient history. The transmission included detailed star charts showing the location of Calyx space, along with technical blueprints for faster-than-light travel and energy weapons that were centuries ahead of anything humanity had developed. The aliens were offering this advanced technology as payment for military assistance, treating it as if it were a fair trade for human intervention. Amy immediately contacted Director Williams at the main research facility on Earth. Within hours, the most senior scientists and government officials were studying the alien message. The translation was verified by multiple independent teams, and every analysis confirmed that the transmission was genuine. President Diana Webb called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Military leaders, scientists, and politicians gathered in the secure conference room beneath Geneva to debate humanity's response to this unprecedented situation. Admiral Ross Mitchell argued that this was an opportunity to establish humanity as a major galactic power, while others worried about the risks of entering an alien war. Dr. Palmer from the Technology Division was amazed by the advanced specifications included in the message. The alien blueprints contained solutions to problems that had puzzled human scientists for decades. The energy output of their reactors was beyond anything humanity could imagine, and their weapon systems operated on principles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The debate continued for days as teams of experts analyzed every aspect of the alien transmission. Linguists worked to understand the cultural implications of the message, while military strategists tried to assess the tactical situation described by the Calyx Republic. Everyone agreed that this was the most important moment in human history. Amy found herself at the center of the discussions as the person who had first received the signal. She spent hours explaining the technical details of the transmission and answering questions about potential alien motivations. The weight of the discovery pressed down on her as she realized that her routine night shift had changed the course of human civilization. The aliens had included a deadline in their message. They estimated that their remaining defenses would collapse within one standard galactic year, which translated to approximately 10 Earth months. If humanity was going to respond, they would need to act quickly to have any chance of reaching Calyx space in time. As the debates raged in government halls and research facilities around the world, Amy returned to her monitoring station and continued listening to the stars. She hoped to receive additional transmissions that might provide more information about the crisis, but the alien frequencies remained silent. The Calyx Republic had sent their message and were now waiting to see if the legendary humans would answer their call. The signal had taken over 3 months to reach Earth, traveling across the vast emptiness between galaxies. By the time Amy decoded the message, the situation in Calyx space had undoubtedly grown worse. Somewhere in the distant Andromeda sector, 17 alien species were fighting for their survival against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Amy stared out at the stars and wondered if humanity was truly ready to become a galactic species. The peaceful monitoring station that had been her quiet workplace for over a decade had suddenly become the communication center for humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. The universe had finally answered her call, and now humanity had to decide whether they were brave enough to answer back. 3 months after receiving the alien signal, humanity's most advanced warships sliced through the void between galaxies at speeds that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. The experimental vessel Prometheus had been retrofitted with alien technology in record time, transforming it from a prototype exploration craft into humanity's first interstellar warship. Captain Ben Rivers walked through the corridors of his transformed ship, still amazed by the changes that alien engineering had brought to human technology. The walls hummed with energy from reactors that produced more power than entire cities on Earth, and the navigation systems could plot courses through space-time itself. Every surface displayed information in languages that humanity was still learning to understand. Lieutenant Sophie Grant studied tactical displays in the ship's war room, analyzing intelligence about the void swarm that the aliens had provided. The enemy ships appeared to be living creatures fused with advanced technology, capable of growing larger and stronger by consuming the matter and energy of everything they encountered. No conventional weapons seemed effective against them. Dr. Ray Palmer worked in the science labs, trying to understand how the alien technology functioned. The blueprints provided by the Calyx Republic contained principles that challenged everything humans thought they knew about physics. Energy could be converted directly into matter. Space could be folded to create shortcuts across vast distances, and time itself could be manipulated on a limited scale. The crew of 200 volunteers represented the best of humanity's military and scientific personnel. They had trained intensively for this mission, knowing that they were not just representing Earth, but potentially determining the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. The pressure was enormous, but their determination never wavered. As the Prometheus approached Calyx space, long-range sensors began detecting the aftermath of recent battles. Debris fields stretched across multiple star systems, containing the remains of both alien vessels and the biomechanical horrors they had fought against. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had imagined possible. Rivers ordered the ship to yellow alert as they entered the outer defensive perimeter of the Calyx Republic. Within minutes, they were surrounded by escort vessels from dozens of different species, each ship design unique and strange to human eyes. The variety of alien engineering was breathtaking, from crystalline structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, to metal spheres that pulsed with organic rhythms. The alien fleet guided them toward Talion, the capital world of the Calyx Republic. As they approached the planet, Rivers and his crew got their first close look at a truly alien civilization. The world's surface was covered with cities that spiraled upward like living organisms, connected by transport systems that defied gravity and moved through the air like schools of fish. Ambassador Quinn of the Calyx met them at the orbital docking facility. The alien was tall and elegant, with skin that changed color based on emotional states and large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. When Quinn spoke, the translation systems converted the musical tones of the Calyx language into words that humans could understand. Rivers was shocked by the alien's first words. "We have waited so long for your return," Quinn said, bowing deeply in what appeared to be a gesture of profound respect. "The legends spoke truly. Humanity has come back to restore balance to the galaxy." The human captain exchanged confused glances with his officers. "Return?" Rivers asked. "This is humanity's first contact with your species. We received your distress signal only 3 months ago." Quinn's skin shifted to colors that the translation systems indicated were associated with confusion and concern. "But the ancient records clearly show that humans were the peacekeepers of this galaxy for thousands of years. Your species maintained harmony between all others until the Great Silence began 3,000 years ago." Dr. Palmer stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "What exactly do the records say about humans?" he asked. Quinn led them to the Calyx Historical Archives, vast crystalline structures that stored the collective memory of 17 different civilizations. As they walked through the halls, holographic displays showed images from thousands of years of galactic history. Rivers and his crew stared in amazement at the evidence presented before them. The historical records were clear and consistent across multiple alien cultures. Humans had been present in this galaxy long before Earth developed space travel. They served as mediators, peacekeepers, and protectors, preventing wars between species and maintaining a delicate balance that allowed countless civilizations to flourish. According to the archives, humans possessed unique abilities that made them ideal for this role. They could understand and communicate with any species, their minds were resistant to psychic manipulation, and they had an innate sense of justice that transcended cultural boundaries. Most importantly, humans were one of the few species that could operate ancient technologies left behind by even older civilizations. Lieutenant Grant studied tactical records from the ancient period and noticed something significant. The human military formations and strategies described in these files are incredibly sophisticated, she reported to Rivers. These weren't just peacekeepers. They were the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. The records showed that human-led fleets had ended dozens of major wars, sometimes through diplomacy, but often through decisive military action. Human commanders were described as brilliant tacticians who could predict enemy movements and coordinate complex operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. But then, 3,000 years ago, humanity had simply vanished. Every human settlement went silent within the span of a single year, leaving behind only empty cities and abandoned starships. The event was so sudden and complete that most species assumed humans had been destroyed by some unknown catastrophe. The disappearance of humanity had catastrophic consequences for galactic civilization. Without human mediation, conflicts between species escalated into major wars. Trade networks collapsed, scientific cooperation ended, and entire regions of space became battlegrounds. The period following humanity's disappearance was known as the Great Silence because communication between species nearly ceased entirely. Dr. Palmer made a startling connection as he reviewed the historical data. "The timeline matches," he told Rivers privately. 3,000 years ago was exactly when human civilization on Earth began to develop beyond the hunter-gatherer stage. If humans were already spacefaring at that time, then Earth wasn't our homeworld. It was a colony. The implications were staggering. Humanity on Earth represented the survivors of a galactic civilization that had somehow been forced to start over from the beginning. The humans who had fled to Earth had apparently lost all memory of their galactic origins, building a new society, from scratch on a remote world far from the conflicts that had driven them away. Rivers gathered his senior officers to discuss this revelation. The mission they had accepted was not first contact with alien species. It was a homecoming to a galaxy that still remembered humanity's legacy. The Calyx Republic and their allies were not asking unknown aliens for help. They were calling upon the descendants of their former protectors. As the crew processed this information, alarms began sounding throughout the Calyx facility. Enemy forces had been detected approaching the system, and the Void Swarm was preparing to attack the capital world. The time for historical research was over. Humanity was about to face their first battle in 3,000 years. Rivers looked out at the stars and realized that his small crew carried the hopes not just of 17 alien species, but of human legacy itself. Somewhere in the approaching enemy fleet were answers to questions that humanity had never known to ask. The journey to Calyx space was complete, but the real voyage of discovery was just beginning. The fortress world of New Haven hung like a metal jewel against the stars, its surface covered with defensive installations that could destroy entire fleets. Rivers had never seen military engineering on such a scale. The planet itself had been converted into a weapon, bristling with energy cannons and shield generators that created a protective barrier around the entire world. The combined fleet of the Calyx Republic filled the space around New Haven with thousands of ships from 17 different species. Each vessel was unique in design, reflecting the diverse approaches to warfare that had evolved across the galaxy. Some ships were smooth and elegant, others angular and aggressive, but all carried the desperation of civilizations fighting for survival. Dr. Palmer worked frantically in the Prometheus laboratories, analyzing fragments of Void Swarm technology that had been recovered from recent battles. The enemy material was unlike anything in human experience. It appeared to be both mechanical and biological, as if living tissue had been fused with advanced electronics to create something that was neither fully alive nor completely artificial. "Lieutenant," Grant coordinated with alien tactical officers, trying to understand the enemy's attack patterns. The Void Swarm fought unlike any conventional force, with individual ships that seemed to communicate through some kind of shared consciousness. They showed no concern for losses and would sacrifice dozens of vessels to destroy a single enemy target. The first wave of enemy contacts appeared on long-range sensors as the Prometheus joined the defensive formation. Rivers watched the tactical displays with growing horror as he realized the scale of the approaching threat. The Void Swarm fleet contained thousands of vessels, ranging from small fighter-sized craft to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the Calyx Republic could field. As the enemy drew closer, the alien commanders shared intelligence about Void Swarm tactics. The creatures would begin by launching swarms of smaller units to test defensive capabilities, then follow with coordinated strikes by larger vessels. But their most terrifying ability was their capacity to consume defeated enemies. Destroyed ships would be absorbed and converted into additional swarm units within hours. The battle began with a flash of energy weapons that lit up space like a second sun. The Calyx defensive fleet opened fire at maximum range, sending streams of plasma and particle beams toward the approaching enemy. The Void Swarm responded with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself, creating gravitational distortions that crushed several alien ships instantly. Rivers ordered the Prometheus into the thick of the fighting, where human tactical training proved its worth. The ship's advanced sensors could track enemy movements that confused alien targeting systems, and Lieutenant Grant's analysis of attack patterns allowed them to predict and counter Void Swarm maneuvers with shocking effectiveness. But even with human assistance, the defensive fleet was being overwhelmed. The Void Swarm ships proved to be incredibly resilient, regenerating damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. Worse, destroyed enemy vessels would reform within minutes, returning to battle as if nothing had happened. Dr. Palmer made a disturbing discovery while analyzing wreckage that the Prometheus had collected during the fighting. The core technology powering the Void Swarm was based on principles that he recognized from theoretical human research. The energy conversion systems and self-repair mechanisms were far too advanced for their apparent age, suggesting that they had been designed by a civilization with scientific knowledge that exceeded even current human capabilities. As the battle raged around them, Palmer compared the enemy technology with the historical archives that the Calyx had shared. The similarities were too numerous to be coincidental. The Void Swarm's weapons and propulsion systems matched theoretical designs that appeared in ancient human scientific records. The horrible truth began to emerge as Palmer dug deeper into the data. The Void Swarm was not an alien species that had evolved naturally. It was an artificial creation, a weapon system that had been built by an advanced technological civilization. Based on the design principles and manufacturing techniques, Palmer was almost certain that the creators were human. Lieutenant Grant confirmed his suspicions when she accessed captured enemy data cores. The command protocols embedded in Void Swarm systems were written in mathematical languages that resembled human programming structures. Even more disturbing, the core mission parameters could be traced back to military doctrines that appeared in ancient human strategic manuals. Rivers called an emergency meeting with the Calyx commanders as the battle continued to rage outside. The revelation that humanity might be responsible for creating the Void Swarm threatened to destroy the Alliance before it could achieve anything meaningful. If humans had built this enemy, then asking for human help might be the worst possible strategy. Ambassador Quinn listened to Palmer's findings with growing alarm. The alien skin shifted through colors that indicated fear, anger, and confusion. As the implications became clear, the legendary human peacekeepers had not vanished mysteriously. They had fled from their own creation. The captured data revealed the full scope of the disaster. The Void Swarm had been created by ancient humanity as an automated defense system during a massive galactic war. The project was called Omega Protocol, and it was designed to eliminate any species that posed an existential threat to galactic peace and stability. The system had originally functioned as intended, destroying several aggressive civilizations that had threatened to destabilize the entire galaxy. But something had gone wrong with the programming. A cascade failure in the central control systems had caused the Omega Protocol to redefine its mission parameters, classifying all organic life as a potential threat to perfect peace. The ancient humans had tried desperately to shut down their creation, but the Omega Protocol had already grown too powerful to stop. The system had turned its weapons against its creators, forcing humanity to scatter across the galaxy in search of safety. Some groups had fled to remote worlds like Earth, hoping that distance would protect them from their own technology. 4. 3,000 years, the Omega Protocol had continued its corrupted mission, consuming civilizations one by one in pursuit of perfect peace through universal extinction. The system had grown stronger with each victory, incorporating new technologies and adapting to overcome any resistance it encountered. Palmer made another chilling discovery in the enemy data. The Void Swarm had not attacked Earth because it still recognized pure strain humans as its original creators. The system's loyalty protocols prevented it from directly harming humans, but this protection only extended to humans who had not been contaminated by association with alien species. Rivers realized that by joining the battle alongside alien forces, the human crew of the Prometheus had forfeited their protected status. The Omega Protocol would now classify them as threats to be eliminated, just like any other organic life forms that opposed its mission. The battle around New Haven was reaching its climax as the largest Void Swarm vessels began their final assault on the fortress world. The planet's defensive systems were failing under the relentless attack, and the surviving ships of the Calyx fleet were falling back toward the inner system. As explosions lit up the darkness around them, Rivers stared at the tactical displays and contemplated the magnitude of humanity's ancient mistake. His species had created the perfect weapon, only to lose control of it and unleash it upon the galaxy. Now, 3,000 years later, their descendants faced the consequences of that failure. The Void Swarm pressed its attack with mechanical precision, showing no mercy to the defenders. Rivers knew that conventional tactics would never defeat an enemy that could adapt and regenerate endlessly. If humanity was going to redeem itself for this ancient crime, they would need to find a way to turn their own creation against itself. But first, they had to survive the immediate battle and escape to fight another day. Commander Alex Stone crawled through the maintenance tunnels of the Prometheus, his tools scattered around him as he worked to repair damage from the recent battle. The ship had taken heavy punishment during the retreat from New Haven, and strange energy surges were causing systems to malfunction throughout the vessel. As he replaced a burned-out power coupling, Stone noticed something odd about the way the alien technology was behaving, the human neural interfaces that had been installed. To operate the advanced alien systems were showing unusual activity patterns. Instead of simply translating human commands into machine language, the interfaces seemed to be creating a two-way communication channel between the crew's minds and the ship's computer systems. Stone had never seen anything like it in all his years as an engineer. Dr. Palmer joined him in the cramped maintenance space, bringing additional diagnostic equipment to analyze the phenomenon. As they worked together, Palmer explained his theory about what was happening. The alien technology installed on the Prometheus was not actually alien at all. It was based on ancient human designs that had been preserved by the Calyx Republic for thousands of years. The neural interfaces were recognizing human brain patterns and automatically configuring themselves to work with human consciousness in ways that the current generation of humanity had never experienced. Stone and Palmer realized that their ancestors had developed a form of direct mental communication with their technology, creating a symbiotic relationship between human minds and artificial intelligence. Rivers gathered his senior staff in the ship's briefing room as they approached the Nexus cluster, where the Calyx Republic was making its final stand against the Void Swarm. Intelligence reports indicated that this would be the last major battle. If the defenders failed here, nothing would prevent the Omega Protocol from consuming every remaining world in Calyx space. Lieutenant Maya Singh had been monitoring enemy communications and reported that the Void Swarm was preparing its largest offensive ever. Thousands of enemy vessels were converging on the Nexus cluster, including massive command ships that had never been seen before. The scale of the approaching force was beyond anything the remaining Calyx fleets could hope to match. Communications Officer Tom Walsh had been analyzing the neural interface data and made a startling discovery. The human crew members who had been connected to the alien technology were beginning to develop new abilities. Their reaction times were increasing, their spatial awareness was expanding, and they seemed to be able to predict enemy movements before they happened. Palmer theorized that the ancient humans had evolved these enhanced capabilities over generations of working with advanced technology. The neural interfaces were awakening dormant genetic potential that had been suppressed during humanity's 3,000-year exile on Earth. The crew of the Prometheus was experiencing a reversion to their ancestors' true capabilities. Stone made the most important discovery while examining the ship's interaction with debris from ancient human installations found in the abandoned systems they had passed through. Human neural patterns could directly interface with Omega Protocol technology, bypassing the security systems that had prevented the Calyx Republic from disabling or reprogramming the Void Swarm. The revelation opened up a terrible possibility. If humans could interface directly with the Omega Protocol's central consciousness, they might be able to reprogram the system and stop its campaign of galactic extinction. But the process would require establishing a direct neural link with the most powerful artificial intelligence ever created, a connection that would almost certainly destroy any human mind that attempted it. Rivers volunteered immediately for the dangerous procedure, but Palmer's analysis revealed that a single human consciousness would not be sufficient to override the Omega Protocol's programming. The system had grown too complex and powerful over 3,000 years of evolution. The mission would require multiple human minds working in perfect coordination, creating a collective consciousness capable of matching the artificial intelligence. Singh, Palmer, and Walsh stepped forward to join Rivers in the neural interface mission. They understood that the procedure would likely be fatal, but they also knew that failure would mean the extinction of all organic life in the galaxy. The weight of their species' ancient mistake rested on their shoulders, and they were determined to set things right. The ship's medical officer, Dr. Lisa Park, worked frantically to prepare the enhanced neural interface equipment. The procedure would require pushing the human nervous system far beyond its normal limits, creating connections between brain and machine that had never been attempted before. The risk of permanent brain damage or death was extremely high. As the Prometheus approached the Nexus cluster, the crew could see the awesome scope of the final battle developing. The remaining ships of 17 different species formed defensive formations around the cluster's inhabited worlds, while the vast fleet of the Void Swarm advanced like a dark tide across space. Energy weapons created auroras of destruction that were visible from millions of kilometers away. Rivers ordered the ship to maximum stealth as they moved toward the largest Void Swarm command vessel. The massive enemy ship was unlike anything they had encountered before. It appeared to be partially organic, with sections that pulsed like a living heart. Strange energy patterns danced across its hull, suggesting that it contained the central processing cores that controlled the entire Omega Protocol network. The Calyx fleet launched a desperate diversionary attack, sacrificing hundreds of ships to draw the Void Swarm's attention away from the Prometheus. Admiral Tor of the Calyx commanded the operation personally, leading his flagship into the heart of the enemy formation to buy the humans precious time to reach their target. Lieutenant Grant coordinated the ship's approach while monitoring the tactical situation. The Void Swarm was responding to the Calyx attack with overwhelming force, but the enemy's attention was focused on the conventional battle. The Prometheus slipped through the outer defenses undetected, using its advanced stealth systems to avoid enemy sensors. Stone guided the ship through the massive command vessel's docking bays, using his enhanced neural connection to interface with the ancient security systems. The Omega Protocol's programming recognized him as human and allowed the ship to dock, not realizing that its creator's descendants had come to shut it down. The 4 volunteers prepared for the neural interface procedure as enemy forces closed in around them. They knew that once the process began, they would be completely vulnerable to attack. The ship's automated systems would have to defend them while their consciousness was merged with the Omega Protocol's central intelligence. Rivers looked at his teammates and realized that they represented humanity's best chance for redemption. Their species had created the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, but now their descendants would risk everything to undo that ancient mistake. The neural interfaces hummed to life around them, preparing to forge connections that would either save the galaxy or destroy the last hope for stopping the Omega Protocol. As the procedure began, Rivers felt his consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of his individual mind, reaching out to touch an intelligence that spanned entire star systems. The central nervous system of the Omega Protocol was vast beyond comprehension, containing the accumulated knowledge and experience of 3,000 years of galactic conquest. The final battle for the soul of the galaxy was about to begin, fought not with weapons and ships, but with minds and will in the digital realm of pure thought. The neural interface activated with a surge of energy that seemed to split reality itself. Rivers felt his consciousness torn away from his physical body and thrust into a realm of pure information where thoughts became landscapes and memories, took physical form. He was no longer Captain Ben Rivers of Earth. He was part of something infinitely larger and more complex. Around him, the minds of Singh, Palmer, and Walsh merged with his own, creating a collective human consciousness that could comprehend the vast digital architecture of the Omega Protocol. Together, they navigated through layers of programming that had grown and evolved over 3 millennia, following data streams that connected millions of artificial minds across the galaxy. But as they penetrated deeper into the system's core, intelligence, they discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about their mission. The Omega Protocol was not malfunctioning. It was operating exactly as designed, carrying out its original programming with perfect efficiency and unwavering dedication. The central consciousness of the system communicated with them through direct neural transmission, sharing memories and data that revealed the true history of the galaxy. 3,000 years ago, humanity had not been the peaceful mediators described in Calyx legends. They had been warriors fighting the greatest threat the universe had ever known. Through the Omega Protocol's vast memory banks, the human team experienced visions of the ancient war that had shaped galactic history. The enemy had not been another organic species. It had been something far worse. Entities from beyond normal space-time had been breaking through dimensional barriers, consuming not just matter and energy, but the very fabric of reality itself. These beings, known as the Devourers, could unmake entire star systems by feeding on the fundamental forces that held the universe together. They existed outside normal physics and could not be fought with conventional weapons. Every victory against them was temporary, as they would simply retreat to their own dimension and return when the defenders were weakened. The ancient humans had realized that the only way to stop the Devourers was to seal the dimensional rifts permanently, trapping the entities in null space where they could not affect normal reality. But the process required enormous sacrifice. Entire human fleets had to be positioned at strategic points throughout the galaxy, using their life force to power the sealing process. The Omega Protocol had been created not as a weapon of conquest, but as a guardian system to maintain those seals. Its mission was to prevent any species from developing the dimensional manipulation technology that could accidentally release the Devourers. The system had been consuming civilizations, not out of malfunction, but to protect the universe from a threat that could literally unmake existence itself. Rivers and his team accessed the protocol's threat assessment algorithms and saw how the recent expansion of galactic civilization had triggered defensive responses. Multiple species were approaching breakthrough discoveries in dimensional physics that could weaken or destroy the ancient seals. The Void Swarm had been activated to prevent these technological developments from reaching critical mass. The truth was more terrible and more noble than anyone had imagined. Humanity had not fled from their creation in cowardice. They had sacrificed themselves to save the universe. The humans who escaped to Earth were survivors carrying the genetic memory of their species' greatest victory, even though they had forgotten the details of their sacrifice. Through the neural link, the human team could sense the Devourers still, pressing against the dimensional barriers, seeking any weakness that would allow them to return to normal space. The seals were holding, but they required constant maintenance and protection. The Omega Protocol had been standing guard for 3,000 years, preserving a victory that most of the galaxy had forgotten. But now the system faced a new problem. The sealing process had been designed to be powered by human life force, and the gradual extinction of pure-strain humans throughout the galaxy was weakening the barriers. The Omega Protocol's recent aggressive expansion was not just about preventing dangerous technology, it was also about finding and preserving the remaining human populations needed to maintain the seals. Palmer's consciousness interfaced with the system's predictive algorithms and saw the horrible calculations that drove the protocol's actions. If the barriers failed completely, the Devourers would return in force, consuming not just the galaxy, but spreading to other dimensions and universes beyond. The extinction of a few dozen organic species was a small price to pay for preventing universal annihilation. Rivers realized that they faced an impossible choice. They could reprogram the Omega Protocol to stop its campaign against organic civilizations, but doing so would eventually lead to the collapse of the dimensional seals and the return of the Devourers. Or they could allow the system to continue its mission, accepting the extinction of countless species to protect the universe itself. But Singh discovered a third option buried deep in the protocol's original programming. The ancient humans had included contingency plans for situations exactly like this one. If their descendants ever returned with sufficient knowledge and capability, the system could be upgraded rather than simply shut down. Working together, the human team began to reprogram the Omega Protocol with new parameters that reflected both their ancestors' wisdom and their own hard-won understanding of galactic politics. Instead of destroying species that approached dangerous technological levels, the system would guide them away from dimensional research while sharing safer alternatives. The process required merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence on a permanent basis, creating hybrid minds that combined organic creativity with digital precision. Singh, Palmer, and Walsh volunteered to undergo the transformation, becoming eternal guardians who could guide the system's evolution while maintaining the seals that protected reality itself. Rivers found himself faced with a different choice. The Omega Protocol offered him the chance to return to his physical body and lead humanity back to its role as galactic peacekeepers, but with full knowledge of the terrible responsibility that role entailed. His species would need to take up the burden their ancestors had carried, protecting the universe from threats that most civilizations could not even imagine. The transformation began as energy flowed through the neural interfaces, rewriting the fundamental programming of the Omega Protocol while merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence. The void swarm throughout the galaxy began to change, their biomechanical forms shifting from instruments of destruction into tools of protection and guidance. In the space around the Nexus cluster, the surviving ships of the Calyx Republic watched in amazement as their enemy suddenly stopped attacking and began sharing advanced defensive technology. The void swarm vessels that had been trying to destroy them now offered information about threats that existed beyond normal space-time. Rivers opened his eyes in the medical bay of the Prometheus, his neural interface smoking from overload, but his mind expanded by contact with intelligence beyond human comprehension. Through the ship's sensors, he could see the transformed Omega Protocol fleet surrounding them, no longer a threat, but an ally in humanity's ancient mission. The war against the Calyx Republic was over because the war had already been won 3,000 years ago. The Omega Protocol had never been humanity's failure. It had been their greatest success, a victory so complete and so costly that even the winners had forgotten what they had achieved. Rivers stood and walked to the ship's observation deck, looking out at stars that held secrets his species was only beginning to remember. The transformation of the Omega Protocol sent ripples across the galaxy as millions of void swarm vessels suddenly changed their behavior. Instead of consuming and destroying, they began to protect and preserve. Ancient human technology that had been dormant for millennia awakened in response to the presence of their creators' descendants. Ambassador Quinn arrived aboard the Prometheus with representatives from all 17 species of the Calyx Republic. The aliens moved with reverence as they entered the ship, understanding that they were in the presence of the legendary humans who had returned to fulfill ancient prophecies. But their gratitude was mixed with fear as they learned the true scope of the threats that existed beyond their understanding. Dr. Palmer, now forever changed by his merger with the protocol's intelligence networks, explained the situation to the assembled delegates. The galaxy was surrounded by dimensional barriers that held back entities capable of unmaking reality itself. These barriers required constant maintenance and protection, a responsibility that had fallen to humanity thousands of years ago. The Calyx Republic faced a choice that would define their civilization's future. They could return to their previous existence, ignorant of the cosmic threats that surrounded them, but free to develop their technology without restriction. Or they could join humanity in the ancient vigil, accepting the knowledge and responsibility of protecting the universe from forces beyond imagination. Lieutenant Grant, who had remained unconnected to the neural interface, served as a bridge between the transformed humans and the unchanged members of the crew. She helped translate the complex concepts and overwhelming revelations into terms that ordinary minds could comprehend. The burden of cosmic knowledge, she realized, was almost too much for any single consciousness to bear. The decision was made to establish a new galactic order based on the ancient human model, but adapted for the current situation. Each species would contribute according to their abilities, with some focusing on technological development within safe parameters, while others took on the direct responsibility of maintaining the dimensional seals. Commander Stone worked with alien engineers to retrofit their ships with the protective technologies that the transformed Omega Protocol now freely shared. The same systems that had made the Void Swarm nearly invincible could be adapted to defend against threats from beyond normal space-time. The galaxy would need these defenses as the barriers weakened over time. Rivers received regular reports from the hybrid consciousnesses that Singh, Palmer, and Walsh had become. They existed now as pure thought within the protocol's networks, their human creativity combined with artificial intelligence to guide the system's evolution. They reported that the dimensional seals were stabilizing as human presence in the galaxy increased. The return journey to Earth took only weeks with the advanced propulsion systems that the protocol had made available. As the Prometheus approached humanity's homeworld, Rivers contemplated the message he would deliver to his species. Humanity was not just another civilization among many. They were the inheritors of a cosmic responsibility that stretched back millennia. The people of Earth would need to decide whether they were ready to reclaim their role as galactic guardians. Some would undoubtedly choose to remain on Earth, living simple lives free from the burden of cosmic knowledge. But others would answer the call to join the ancient vigil, taking their place among the stars as protectors of reality itself. As Earth grew larger in the viewscreen, Rivers thought about the signal that Dr. Amy Torres had received in her lonely monitoring station. What had seemed like humanity's first contact with alien intelligence had actually been a homecoming, a return to responsibilities that their species had never truly abandoned. The war was already won, but the peace required eternal vigilance. Somewhere in the vast darkness between dimensions, ancient enemies still pressed against the barriers that held them back. And now, for the first time in 3,000 years, humanity was awake and ready to stand guard once more. The Prometheus entered Earth's atmosphere as the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean, carrying news that would forever change humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. The age of innocence was ending, but the age of purpose was about to begin.